So something that I've always loved about being a woodwind multi-instrumentalist is that every instrument brings out a different part of my personality and makes me play in a different way. And the EWI takes this to a new extreme by allowing me to explore thousands of different sounds on the same instrument. I especially love the fact that I can play synthesizers with it because I really like the way that synthesizers sound, and I also really like playing the kinds of music that has synthesizers in it. The other aspect of the EWI that I really like is just how futuristic it is and how it really continues the lineage of woodwind instruments into the future. So I don't really know if this counts, but my first rig was just the Akai EWI USB with the Garriton sound library that it came with. I literally only used the expander sound, and I played that setup for about a year before I got the 5000, and then I played the internal sounds on that for a little bit, and then I got bored of that, and I started to explore my other options and try and figure out what else I could do with the instrument. So my approach to playing the EWI really depends on the type of music that I'm trying to play with it. I've been really fortunate in that a lot of musicians in my community have been really open to including the EWI in their shows and trying to figure out how we can incorporate it into their music. And so I've played the EWI with trap artists and ambient electronic music groups and funk bands and of course fusion bands, because who hasn't? No matter what the situation is, I think it's really important to have a really clear idea of what your role in the band is going to be, and then do your best to respect the genre and restrain yourself from playing anything that could be construed as inauthentic to that genre. This can be a challenge with the EWI because it's not really inherently authentic to any genre, but synthesizers are, so they can sort of be our guide to knowing what's appropriate. That said, we always want to be taking advantage of the fact that we're playing a wind synth rather than just a standard MIDI keyboard controller. This means using our breath or other MIDI controls to add an extra dimension of expressiveness to the music that would otherwise be missing without some really extensive sound design. Which reminds me, sound design is also really important to playing authentically within any given genre. This goes beyond just playing the right patch, it also includes spatial elements like delay and reverb and EQ. I think that keyboard players and guitarists are my main inspiration for EWI playing. Not only do they navigate a several octave range, but they also have the same sort of freedom that we do in manipulating their sound in cool ways with pedals and controls. Some musicians that I think do this really well are Herbie Hancock and Corey Henry and Yannick Allwood of the band Afterfunk. Seeing him play was always really inspiring to me. And I'm also a huge fan of Jamiroquai, and his keyboard player does all that stuff really well and actually has a YouTube channel where he demonstrates all of this. That is by no means a complete list, by the way. There's so many players that are incredible and who inspire me in different ways. But the other thing I want to mention is electronic music. I think that my love of electronic music is what has kept me coming back to the EWI and trying to find better sounds and different ways of playing and different ways to manipulate the sound. I really enjoy to listen to music by artists like Aphex Twin and Marconi Union and Fortet, and even more popular artists like Disclosure or Ariana Grande, and try and find ways to copy those synth sounds or figure out what the synth parts are and what they're doing in the music. That gets me thinking about music in a different way, almost like I'm a computer who's been programmed to play in a certain way, or I've been sidechained to react to different situations or sounds. A lot of synth sounds in this music have gone through a lot of different steps to sound the way that they do, and these producers, they put so much attention and care into it. It's hard not to be inspired by that. While I'm not in any way an expert on markets, but what I've seen gives me some really mixed feelings. On one hand, it's awesome because there are a lot of companies making instruments, so we have a lot of options to choose from. That's great, but on the other hand, I don't think that all of this competition is necessarily making the instruments on offer any better. It seems like a lot of companies right now are competing to make the cheapest, most simple, most beginner-friendly instrument out there. Now, I'm not trying to be a gatekeeper, I'm all for having wind synths that are accessible and affordable, but I also wish that there was some more innovation in the opposite direction. It's also a little disheartening to see companies put out demo videos for their products that are just objectively like bad to listen to. This is something that Roland and Akai and smaller companies like Vindor as well are really guilty of. And I think that's irresponsible and disrespectful to the WinSynth community, because there are so many people who are trying really hard to get WinSynths to be recognized as legitimate instruments and trying to get them more widely known. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of the companies that produce these instruments are actually hindering that effort rather than helping it. So my EWI rig consists of an EWI 5000, and attached to it I have an Akai LPD8 and a Nintendo Wii remote. And I also use a expression pedal, and all of these components are being run through either Ableton or MainStage, where they control soft synths or control a bunch of other really cool effects. So let me just run you through everything that this does. So I have the motion controls from the Wii remote doing different things. This activates a tremolo effect, and if I do this, it activates a harmonizer, and if I go like this, it activates mod wheel vibrato. I use these arrows to change the patch in Ableton or MainStage, so the sound of the instrument. This B button, this triggers delay, and this A button triggers a note repeater effect. Let's see, 1 triggers an arpeggiator, and 2 triggers a note randomizer, which is pretty fun. So over here on the LPD8, this is tap tempo, so I can just tap that at whatever speed I want my effects to be at. Let's see, this controls the pitch of the harmonizer, and then this controls how much reverb I'm going to have, and then this is the left and right delay rate, and then this is the amount of the delay, the feedback, and let's see, this one is this is delay from my effects mic. So I usually use Ableton and MainStage for an effects mic for flute and saxophone in my live shows as well. So that's really convenient. I have everything going through one computer, all being controlled by more or less the same set of controls. So that's cool. And then this is like a virtual amplifier that I can use to affect the sound of my EWI a little bit and take some of the more harsh digital sounding sounds and make them a little bit warmer. So that's cool. Let's see. This controls whether the left and right channels of the delay are in sync or if there's different delay on the left and right channels. What else am I missing? I think that's about it. Oh yeah, my pedal, it affects the glide rate of the synth. So yeah, so I can do these like really long glides, like kind of trombone style maybe, or just like some shorter stuff. So yeah, it's nice to have fine control over all that in one instrument without having to look at my computer screen. So I think that the EWI is more similar to the saxophone than it is to any other type of instrument, except for maybe the recorder. They're similar in that you control the octaves with your thumb, and the key layout is of course pretty similar, and of course you're blowing into the instrument to produce a sound. Other than that, they're pretty different. I think that wind instruments, in most scenarios, they have like a really clearly defined musical role, whereas the EWI, you have so many options when it comes to tone and register and even genre. So I guess I'd say that mechanically they're similar, but musically they're very different and they play different roles. And yeah, that's probably the way it should be. That said, I like hearing saxophone language being played on the EWI if like the synth patch is really good, because I think it's a really cool recontextualization, and I think that it kind of shows off the lineage of the instrument. So yeah. So I've never actually played a hardware synth, and to be honest, I don't really have a desire to. I could use a hardware synth with my EWI rig and just run it through Ableton or MainStage instead of using a VST, but it's hard to justify the cost, especially since I'm pretty satisfied with the way that all of my VSTs sound. That said, having to rely on a computer to be able to play your instrument can be really frustrating and very stressful at times. There are 1,000 things that can go wrong, and it can be really difficult to troubleshoot. Also, having to rely on Apple to do your repairs and replace all of your parts can be a bit of a slap in the face. So I would love to get away from software at some point, but until somebody makes an instrument that can do everything that mine does with the software, I'm probably just going to keep toughing it out with my laptop.